because he knew what he was buying.
Okay. Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. Mr. Drenchek, roll call, please.
Mrs. Barnes?
Here.
Mrs. Rogers?
Here.
Mr. Januso?
Here.
Mrs. Barney?
Here.
Mr. Roach? Ms. Durig?
Here.
Mr. Nicholas? Ms. Seymour?
Here.
Mr. Brett?
Here.
Mr. Lennon?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the August 15th, 2023 minutes. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Okay, this evening we have Mr. Turnley here to present the findings of the 2022 audit.
Thank you, board members, for having me this evening. I have to apologize for missing last month. I was sitting at the dinner table having dinner, and Mike calls. Talk about just that's how I felt.
Your timing's great, Darlene.
Color in me was right now. Mike was saying, "Mark, you're supposed to be here." I'm like, "Oh, my Lord." So I apologize for that.
No worries.
Just briefly to go over the results of the 2022 audit.
I think his microphone's on. Hey, Mark, I don't think your microphone's on. Is there a button there or something?
Is it, can you hear? Oh, there
Ah,
we go.
you
Yes,
go.
there we go.
There you go.
Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you.
If you have a copy of the audit report
Yep.
itself, the bound copy, I'm just going to go over some pages within that just to give you a little feel for the flow of the audit report. But from our perspective, the most important pages are in the very beginning is our independent auditor's report, which this year, like we did last year, we gave the authority what's known as an unmodified opinion. And basically in our industry, an unmodified opinion means that the information contained in the body of that audit report is in conformity with the rules and regulations of our profession, and there are no departures from that. So that's the type of opinion you want to have. In the old days, we used to refer that as a clean opinion. And whenever it's going out to third-party agencies, grantor agencies, whoever may request a copy of it, that again is the type of opinion you want to have. Subsequent to that is a section I always refer my board members to, is the management discussion and analysis section. And that starts on page 4, and it runs through Roman numeral page 7. But the reason I call that to your attention is because what that does is give the reader of the financial statements a quick read of the financial results for not only the current calendar year 22, but also the prior calendar year 21 as well. And if you're really not familiar or you're not a financial person in nature, it saves you from really having to go through the bulk part of the remaining part of the audit. So when you look at that section, there are some comparative information that I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, just for informational purposes. In that MD&A section, as I call it, if you turn to page 5, Roman numeral 5, you'll see a comparison of a balance sheet up top, if you will, 22, 21, and then a summarized, condensed profit and loss statement at the bottom. So when you look at that condensed and summarized balance sheet up top, when you look at the net position at the bottom, that's the health of the organization after you take into consideration all assets minus all liabilities. So you can see it grew by about $797,000, and that's about 3%. What's even more important, in my opinion, is of that net position, you see it's comprised of 3 elements: capital assets, restricted and unrestricted. The only monies within that pot, if you will, that are expendable, that are liquid after all bills have been paid, is the unrestricted portion. And you can see that that increased significantly in calendar year 2022 by 1.4 million, or almost 18%. So that's important to know. Of all that net position, that's the most liquid available to use moving from one year to the next. The rest of that money is either restricted or tied up just in capital assets, which obviously you can't spend. At the bottom, profit and loss statement, again, the very bottom line, you can see for 2022, we had a profit of $797,000 versus $319,000 last year, almost 150% increase from one year versus the next. So once again, good numbers when we're looking at 22 versus 21. I'm going to move you away from that thick audit report and call your attention to two letters that are behind that audit report that I passed out to the board, both dated for June 17th, 2023, if you have a copy of those.
I gave you one.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
If you'd be kind enough, the one I'm referring to, you'll know you have, it's on the first page, it says net position analysis. Right in the middle, you'll know you're looking at the right thing. But the pages that I want you to look at in particular is page 2. On page 2, we talk about a 5-year history of that unrestricted net position of the authority. And once again, we just talked about that $1,470,000 increase from last calendar year, 21 to 22, which we just talked about. Down below that, I give you a 5-year history of the key components of that profit and loss statement that we briefly talked about. You can see operating revenues, operating expenses, so that you can see both your operating income for a 5-year period and your bottom line net income for each of those 5 years. Once again, just for the sake of the board, I prepare this so we can talk about the current year results, but provide you some past history so you can see the strength, the health of the organization over that 5-year period. If you look at the last line at the very right hand, the net income, that's the same number that I started my presentation with, the $797,430. When you turn to page 3 in that particular synopsis, I give you operating ratios. For an authority, any type of authority, there are a number of ratios that industry has, no matter what type of authority you are. There's an operating ratio, a current ratio, and a debt to total asset ratio. And can be a little technical in nature, but in each particular case, these ratios have improved over last calendar year. The operating ratio, and I explain below there just to give you a reason for that. The operating ratio compares the level of operating expenses to operating revenues. So the lower that gets, and you can see it decreased in 2022, which means your expenses are either, or a better way to say it is your revenues are exceeding your expenses by more than they did in the previous year, which is a healthy indicator. Last year, the expenses were at 84% of revenues. This year, your expenses were only at 74%, an increase in charges to customers. So that was a good change, even though when you first look at that ratio, you say, oh, it went down, that may be a bad thing. No, in this particular calculation, it's a good thing. The current ratio increased to 15.5. What that is simply how much more in liquid assets do you have, cash and investments, than you have current bills to pay. So this all has to do with liquid transactions. I have cash. How much cash do I have on hand to pay my bills at the end of the year? So the higher this ratio means the more liquid money you have available to pay those bills. So you can see the increase over the last 5 years, and in particular over last year. And then the last ratio, debt to total asset. You see a decrease in the 22 year, and what that means is you've continued to pay down on your debt service obligations. So the debt, overall debt, as a percentage of assets will decrease. That makes sense. The more you pay off your principal on your long-term bond obligations, the lower that number should be, and it in fact is lower. So, we've talked about a lot of numbers this evening, and I apologize for that, but I just wanted to give you the highlights, the more important information with regard to how you did, where you ended at 12/31/22, not only compared to 21, but the last 5 years, what that number was and what it meant. Your profit and loss, did we make money? How did we do 2022 versus 21? And also a 5-year history of that. And then also the important ratios that are in the authority industry. Gave you the 3, what I think are most important to this particular authority, and to show you that they all improved from 2021 to 2022. And then my last comment is to remind you that you received an unmodified opinion, which again is a clean opinion and the type of opinion that you want to have. There's a lot of information in that thick audit report. Obviously, you can peruse that at your leisure, but those are the highlights for the sake of the presentation for the board this evening. If anyone has any questions at this particular time, hopefully I can answer them. Please feel free to ask.
Under the segregation of duties and oversight, it's mentioned, but I'm not seeing that they're specifically an opinion. Are there recommendations for any changes there?
Well, in reading that comment, and that's a pretty standard comment for business offices your size. Shanna, even though you have Mike in an oversight capacity, Shanna does a lot of the detail accounting type work involved in a number of areas. And that's the situation in a lot of my authorities. It's not like a major corporation where you have 5 Shannas and 2 Mikes overseeing certain things. So what that does is, it's, I call that to the attention of all my clients, not just my authorities, my school districts, my municipalities, just to say that when you have that type of business office situation, obviously you as a board, and I've been on boards myself, so I know how it functions, but you put your faith in those folks that are running the business office, that they're handling your money properly and everything is okay. But it increases, as I mentioned, the fiduciary responsibility of the board to oversee those operations as best you can, and to receive financial information on a monthly basis, bills, financial statements, profit and loss, things that I'm bringing to your attention tonight, so that even if you don't have a in-depth financial background, there are certain items that you could look at and say, boy, this just doesn't look right. And that's a responsibility of all board members, is to review that information and to just look at anything that doesn't look right. Hopefully there are none of those items, but if anything doesn't look right, to be able to ask that question to both Mike and Shannon and say, hey, can you give us a little more explanation on why this is either increased or decreased, and the reasons why.
Yes,
So.
and we do receive that information monthly, and the board members do review the budget and how we're performing against the budget, so. Very good. Any other questions?
Nope. Good job.
Very good, thank you so much. We appreciate your time tonight.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, next up on the agenda is the engineer's report.
Yes, I will go over a couple updates on the memo, and then Larry will give us the update on Lawrence. The big update is CFA board did not meet. It was postponed from September until, we're hearing, November 21st. So it's going to move out 2 months. And that's for, you have a grant request in for PA small water for a number of projects, and then 3H2O. They're all going to be on the same meeting. I think it's held up from what we're hearing because of the budget issues. And that's probably not going to get resolved till after the election. So.
Okay.
And Larry, want to give the update and the items that's on the agenda?
Okay, on the,
Talk again, yeah, it is.
the Village of Lawrence, on the collection system contract, so work's completed in the past month, includes work on First Street, Pepper Lane, and Second Street. They're currently working on Third Street and Alley C. Construction is going pretty well. It seems to be going pretty well for residents right now. So, they're asking questions, shipping laterals, coordinating with Mike. Mike's been a great help on the project, residents, as well as a couple of our guys. So no major concerns right now. They did, the contractor noted they're hitting more wildcat sewers than anticipated. They may make a claim at some point that we might need to discuss some cost implications there. Right now, I'd say it's pretty minor, but as they go, like they're working in the meat of the village right now where they weren't hitting too many houses before. So we're going to keep monitoring that and we'll advise next month.
Larry, why does that affect costs for hitting these wildcat sewers? I mean, they have to,
They have to reconnect them, because they have to reconnect them, and it's not, Mike found a clause in the contract that we can use to argue on in terms of costs. I think it's questionable. It's something we might have to discuss. That's all.
Thank you. Can't hear me. Any better? There we go.
so you're documenting with these,
Yes, we're documenting all
Yeah,
that.
they're kind of what was described at the public meeting that we had. We had a couple residents come up and just said, they're very concerned about the wildcat sewers being broke. It's in the contract, they have to keep them connected, but there's a point where it gets beyond what anybody could anticipate. So we're just tracking it right now, so.
Yeah. And they did make mention of it in the last construction
of course,
meeting, so.
after the sewers are installed, these wildcat sewers are abandoned, so.
Right.
Correct.
So this is just to keep things going till.
Just
till projects-
Band-Aiding them to keep them in service, so it keeps moving the way it is today, discharging the way it is, so it's not backing up, impacting other residents, so.
Gotcha.
The township did have a question on paving. The contractor, as he's been testing his sewers, he's been going back and paving the trenches, so they've completed restoration on Federal Street. And what they did was they just did full-depth binder. They'll come back later, mill it off, and then put nice wearing course down. But right now, they're just bringing binder in so they can get the trenches capped as they test the sewer. So they'll put the sewer in, they have to wait 30 days, test it, and then they've been paving. That seems to be going pretty well with the township.
Regarding that stormwater plan that Cecil Township said that they would, are you guys in touch with them through the process, or will it be after this?
It'll be
is
after
complete?
that they'll come in and we will give them the documentation that we have on these wildcat sewers. Because part of what they're gonna do is eliminate probably some of those undocumented storm sewers and stuff. Because that's what the residents were complaining about too, stormwater from the roads, going into their yards and things like that. So the township, from the public meeting, sounds like they're aware of this, they're gonna do a project. But I think we'll provide them everything that we find, because it'll help them with their
Yes.
project then, so.
Yeah, and the Wildcats do take some stormwater drainage too, so that's another reason they need to be left in. And
Okay.
on the permit side, the Conservation District contractor, the Conservation District's requiring an amendment. I don't know if we talked about this last month because of where the contractor was using for a waste site close to the project. So they're requiring the authority's permit to be amended. That's a new requirement. Contractor's working directly with the Conservation District. We may have to sign some paperwork, but there were some comments the other day between the Conservation District and the contractor, so it seems like they're talking right now. So, under the plant contract, some big changes in the past month. So the precast concrete tanks, they were delivered and set. So if you go to the pictures in the report, you can see a picture, and then going back to page 5, you can see the crane that was on site mobilized, and tanks have been set. So the tanks are down there, they've been set. These are the type with internal cabling that they're pre-stressed, post-tensioned, where they've done a lot of that work already. So right now they're going cleaning up, grouting cells. So a lot of tanks are constructed, and you can see on like page 6, a picture of one of the finished tanks, the UV tank, then the back wall of the large SBR tank. So if you do go to the site tonight, you would see those tanks are there. They're going to be starting, they're doing a lot of pipe work, underground pipe work now, and they're getting ready to do the wet well here in the next month. And that'll be the major excavation in the cul-de-sac area, and that's all fenced in at this point, so. So we do have 2 pay requests on the agenda. Contract number 2017-06, rebid, construction sanitary sewers and appurtenances. A motion to approve, reject, or table partial payment number 4 in the amount of $492,418.40.
Do I hear a motion to approve the
I'll make
partial
that
payment?
motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
We have a second motion, contract number 21-STP1, rebid, Village of Lawrence Sewage Treatment Plant. Motion to approve, reject, or table partial payment number 3 in the amount of $882,198.25.
I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
We have a Penvest payment requisition motion. This is for the construction invoices you just approved and also engineering. A motion to approve, reject, or table Penvest payment requisition number 4 in the amount of $1,429,102.05.
Do I hear a motion as stated?
I'll make that motion.
Second? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Okay, that's the update for the Lawrence project, unless there's any questions.
Not a question for you, but Mike, any increase in complaints or concerns?
No, it's actually been pretty good. It's been, mostly everything's been the location of the laterals. It's been shifting them either east or west, north or south, because it's in behind somebody's shed, it's behind whatever. I mean, it's all minor things. I did get a complaint this morning, or more a concern. I guess the trucks are coming out of Federals, or off of, by the post office, School Street, by the body shop, and somebody almost got hit because the truck was coming over into the opposite lane when pulling out. So I relayed that to John, that they have to be careful, when pulling out. Like I said, for the most part, it's far and few between complaints. Mostly everybody that I've gone out and talked to, they say the project's long overdue, and they are happy that it's coming. The one lady said, it's going to cost her a little bit to tie in, but when this is all said and done, 82 homes will stop dumping sewage onto her property.
Yeah.
So she's excited about it. So like you said again,
Perspective.
so like I said, it's just a lot of times you get somebody at first, they're not sure. If you go out and you talk to them and kind of explain it to them, walk them through, it goes a long way. So it's been pretty smooth so far.
Very good. Any other questions for Larry? All right, thank you. Next item up, I'm not sure about, so let's have a motion, and then we can explain what that is. Motion to authorize letter to M&T Trust Company in regards to capital improvements and redemption fund transfers.
That's whenever we make a transfer to pay the bond. If there's any money that's left over in interest or anything like that, that we can transfer over into the capital improvement account. But we don't have anything extra to transfer, but we have to have that letter whenever we do that transfer. That's one of the things that they require. We did that when we transferred back in March. So this is for the latest bond payment, so.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is discussion recommendations for updating Act 57 tapping fee study.
Lennon Smith Solar Ray did an update of the, what is that, Act 57, Larry? You want to explain what you did briefly?
Okay. So turn your attention to the handout that looks like this one. This is the tap fee. It's a 2-page analysis. So the first page, this is the results of the calculations in accordance with Pennsylvania Act 57 requirements, which sets the maximum amount you could charge for a tap fee and be in compliance with state requirements. So we selected an option for 90 gallons per person per day to calculate the capacities. So that's at the top, you see 225 gallons per person per day. And then you go down through, and it's split by different types of fees. So you have a connection fee. So for the authority, you do an inspection, you don't build the lateral, so you charge a $250 inspection fee, which is reasonable. Customer facility fee, the township does inspections as part of the building permit process, so you actually don't charge for that, unless there's a special inspection if there wasn't a building permit. Under the tapping fee components, so what we did, the capacity component, that's in regards to treatment plants or pump stations. So these are cost per EDU. So you can see in the left column, it's the 2023 maximum. So what we did, we have a historic cost, for example, Miller's Run that was constructed, I believe, 2010, 2011. Using the engineering news record, Pittsburgh Construction Cost Index, we extrapolated that to 2023 to estimate what it would cost to build it today. And then we would back calculate the capacity of the system, what it would cost per EDU to buy into that system if you were to build it today. So for example, Miller's Run, that calculates to $4,820 per EDU to build that. Lawrence, $5,960, and you can see Cherry Brook, $20. South Point, you don't own a treatment plant or pump station, so that's $0, or one that you constructed. And then Brush Run, $440. The next component is the collections component. So for the gravity sewer component, what this is a composite of all your customers, all service areas. So you could charge for all service areas for the collection system up to $2,490. The right column is what's proposed, and you can see we have proposed Miller's Run number for the treatment plant, Lawrence. Cherry Brook was changed when we had a committee meeting earlier this evening. For the collection, it's proposed at $2,000. And when we get to the next page, you'll see where you compare from existing tap-in fees to what's proposed. Special purpose, you don't have no special purpose proposed at $0. Reimbursement component, and you can see the footnotes down below to explain all these, but reimbursement component, your customers that are in Brush Run or South Point area, they are subject to a tap fee directly to Canonsburg, Houston. So the footnotes identify that they need and also North Strabane if they live in the Morganza area, that they'd have to pay those authorities directly, provide proof of payment to the authority, then you could approve a tap fee. So that way, it's all on one cost sheet that they know they have to pay those fees also. So if you flip to page 2, now the top of page 2 has your existing tap fee schedule. So Brush Run, $695, South Point, $250, which would be in the inspection, Cherry Brook, $900, Miller's Run, $6,480, Lawrence, which you adopted recently, $4,500. There's also Teodori, $2,475. It's proposed to remove Teodori and just include that in the new Lawrence service area because it'll be the same plant, same pump station, part of that project. So the proposed schedule is down below, and the way it's broken by component, and this is just an example calculation. For example, Brush Run, if you adopted the $250 connection fee, facility fee $0, remember the township does that inspection. A capacity component, Brush Run goes to Canonsburg, Houston, so that'd be $0. The collection component of $2,000, that'd give you a tap fee for one connection of $2,250. South Point is similar. Cherry Brook is proposed the same. There was a $20 capacity that could be charged, but I think there's very little growth. We'll just leave those fees the same, or no growth. Miller's Run, with the collection component of $2,000 and a capacity component of $4,550, the tap fee proposed would be $6,800. And then Lawrence, setting it with the $4,500 you recently approved, would give you a capacity component, and that's how those add up. So, and the way it works is if a commercial came in, there was multiple EDUs. If you look on the left side of that table, you can see connection fees each The capacity component, that's dollars per EDU. So depending on how many gallons they need, that would increase how many components they need to pay. So if it was like 10 EDUs, they'd have to pay times 10 of the, let's say, for Lawrence, $2,250 to buy that capacity, buying that capacity in your system, because then you can't sell it to another residential or somebody else. So that way it reserves it, so.
So the tap fee committee, which is myself and Roseanne, are recommending to the rest of the board that we increase the tap fees in accordance with the bottom line there. $22.50 for Brush Run, South Point, and Cherry Brook. Miller's Run would go up minimally to $6,800, and Lawrence would just be, well, with the $4,500, which we already agreed to. And then we'd ask Christine to prepare a resolution to be officially approved at the next meeting, but this is for the members to hopefully, I don't know, do we need a motion tonight or anything to agree to it or anything? No.
No, we can just do it by the resolution next
Nope.
month.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you for your work on that. Thank you for your recommendations. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Christine, solicit report, please.
I have submitted a written report. I don't think there's anything I need to go into unless there's any questions. I will need an executive session, however, for personnel, real estate, and legal matters at the end of the meeting.
Okay. All right, thank you. Business managers report. Shauna?
Okay, your packets have the July 2023 financial reports. Is there any questions?
No, still staying on budget really well.
Okay. Second item, community bank, that account is now closed. We have a stack of blank checks, deposit books, endorsement stamps that need to be destroyed. So I just want to see, are we able to destroy them in the office, or should I call the Allegheny Records Destruction to get rid of them?
It just so happens, I recently asked at the Township Supervisors meeting if we have a day for that, and we don't, for, shredding or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think there's one in Canonsburg at some point in time. But if we need to do that immediately, I think the recommendation, I don't know how much is there, whether you can shred it yourself. Do we have a shredder in the
I have a
office?
shredder, yeah.
Okay.
It can be done if
How large a volume is it?
Yeah. Like one
mean-
box or,
File box or something
I
small?
wouldn't say a file box, no.
okay.
Smaller than that, yeah.
Then I'd probably recommend
Yeah,
just
we could do
shredding
it
it
in the
there.
office. I didn't know if that's, since they were bank checks, if that
I
was
don't think they
allowed
can
or-
be done after shredders, yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, and then the third item, an update on the liens. The tap-in liens, there have been a total of 19 that have been paid in full. 13 liens are currently on a payment plan, and the customers pretty much pay every month on time. There's still 16 liens that there has been no payments made, and the customers have not contacted us to make a payment plan or anything. The unpaid sewer liens, there has been a total of 96 paid in full. 9 liens are currently on a payment plan, and there are 21 liens where no payments have been made. We do have 2 customers who send in occasional payments, but they're not set up on a payment plan, which one's been offered to them, but they haven't filled or signed the paperwork and sent it back. And then for 2023, I have added so far 4 new liens for unpaid sewage. And that's it.
Okay, Mr. Zrenchek, Authority Managers Report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just go over some items this evening. The new pickup truck has been upfitted and lettered. It's in service. So we got one in use, so that's good. Everything's good. The 2012 Ford pickup would not pass inspection. It needs a fuel pump, and the bed supports are rusted through. This is a truck we use to plow snow. I'm looking at a couple of options, but it looks like if they don't pan out, we will probably have to replace this truck. And then with the strike going on, I'm trying to debate whether to replace with a pickup truck or look into the service truck, because we do need a service truck at some point in time, because with pulling pumps, manholes, all those things. So I will get everything together and present the best option, but I just wanted to make everybody aware of that. Item 3, Miller's Run Pump Station. Right before Labor Day, we had pump number 2, variable frequency drive. It stopped working. We did some diagnosis, and it was the drive and not the pump. We did have a spare drive available. We had Clinton Controls, who designed the control panel. They came out and they installed the new drive and programmed the VFD. Everything went back to normal. Everything's been running good. The issue we discovered during this whole process was there is no redundancy built into the control panel. If the VFD goes down, there are no bypass contactors so you could run the pump. The only way you can do it is you can actually wire straight through, but that removes the safety. There's no way to trip the pump. It could burn the motor up. So I asked Clinton Controls while they were out if it was possible to look at maybe adding something like that to the control panel, that if the VFD would go down, we could still run the pumps, you know, until we can get that taken care of. And they said, yes, there is a way to do it. They are putting a price together for me for this backup system. The other thing I'm also doing is looking at getting a price so we can have a spare VFD, as we don't have one now. The unit that's in there that is still working is the original one from when the plant was built, or the pump station was built, late 2000s. So I just don't want to be caught without it, so I'll have a number for that. Moving on to item number 4, there are some things that occurred at the Miller's Run wastewater treatment plant. The hot water tank and the air conditioning unit had failed. I had McKean Plumbing out last week to diagnose. The capacitors for the AC unit were bad and they'll need to be replaced. And then the tube for the hot water tank that draws the water up through to the plant is bad. So that will need replaced as well. They're putting together a quote for the new hot water tank and the replacement of the capacitors in the AC units. Both of these items are 15 plus years old, so we'll have to get that taken care of. The roof is leaking in various spots at that building. Some is leaking in the back office area, the blower room area where we store our records. There's leaks over there, so we have to put tarps over that. I got a couple of names to come out and have them take a look at the roof to see what needs to be done there so we can get that patch before winter, because we can't have the records room and we can't have that water coming in through. So it's just something, you know, that we'll have to have looked at. Also, I found out that the ventilation fans on the roof are not working. Those I can take a look at. We're going to check those in-house before calling someone out. I'm thinking maybe a belt broke. The squirrel cage motor may have gone bad. So those are little things we can test first. We may be able to fix those in-house before we, you know, jump ship and go to somebody. If we can't, then, you know, we'll have that addressed as well. Last thing I happened to notice down there was that the fire extinguishers that we do have fire extinguishers, but they are not commercial. They are undersized, and they're not rated for the possible types of fires we can have if it happens in the electrical room or whatever. So I'm looking at pricing to see what it would cost to get those units updated, because I think they may be 2-pounders. You know, that's not going to put too much of a fire out if we have something. So those are the little things that we had going on at Miller's Run that, you know, I'm working on. Item number 5, the clarifiers at Teodori and Cherry Brook wastewater treatment plant. They were drained, cleaned, and inspected as just part of routine maintenance. No issues were found at this time. Like I said, Teodori, we're just keeping running, you know, until that plant goes, because it's going to be updated and replaced. Cherry Brook, everything's good there. There was nothing that we found that, needs any attention immediately. Item 6, the NPDES permits for the Teodori and Cherry Brook wastewater treatment plant will expire on May 31st, 2024. The renewal applications are due to the DEP by December 3rd, 2023. I started working on these applications. There'll be some lab testing that needs to be done to submit with those. It's not routine testing that we normally do, so I'll have all those together and get those out well before the deadline. Item 7, it's time to start working on the 2024 budget. I'll be starting the preliminary process later this month, just, getting, everything together. I'll include a review of the current rate structure in Schedule A, just to make sure that, there's nothing that needs to be done there, that our fees are in line with everybody else's fees. But I did want to make everybody, aware that that's coming. I recommend we do it every year, but next month at the October meeting, doing the subcommittee to assist with preparation of the budget for 2024. But like I said, it's just one of those things, so I don't forget. I want to make sure that I remind everybody. Item 8, property owner at 634 Old Maganza Road called me to inquire about the availability of sewage to this property as it's for sale. They were approached by a developer, which was told it was get-go, and they have an interest in purchasing the property, except that it has septic. So I looked into it just to see what we have there. The nearest sewer availability to this property is approximately 1 mile away, but the owner wanted me to bring it up at the board meeting just to put it out in front of everybody. But like I said, again, that's where we're at with that. I know in the past, anything we've done, if the developer wants to, do the extension, that's on them. But I just wanted to make the board aware that somebody did, call and inquire about that.
Is that 5 acres that's by
Right
South
there,
Point
right there at the
intersection?
Section, yes. So I don't know if anybody approached you, Darlene, or the township about that.
Not that I know of.
Like you said, but I just wanted to make everybody aware that somebody did reach out for that, so.
Zone commercial there?
Now, is that 634 Old Maganza Road? South Point Boulevard is,
It's right there at that
There,
intersection.
yeah, there's a 5 acre for
Yeah.
sale sign right there.
But like I said, I said that I would present it, and like you said, again, I'll make it clear that, any type of development like that is usually, if the developer wants to do the extension, that's on them. But I wanted to present it so everybody was aware. Item 9, PFM Financial Advisors LLC, who was engaged by CHJA last year to assist with the exploration of selling the treatment plant and maybe the collection systems for Cannonsburg and Houston, has asked to meet with all municipal entities that could be impacted by the sale. They want to discuss the process that was used to determine the sale numbers and the results that were gathered through this. I don't have any dates or times at this juncture, but I will provide everybody information once I get some more.
I actually have a hot off the press update, like I was getting text from Ramel. PFM did reach out to him. He's been reaching out to the various entities, and it's looking like next Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday, 10 o'clock at Chartiers. They do want a representative of the board here to attend. Once he gets a more firm date, we'll reach out and let everybody know and see who can attend.
Okay. And then my last item this evening is the Cool Valley Project update. No change. I haven't heard any more, but I keep it on there just so, that it stays fresh, that I, try to reach out. But, I haven't heard anything from Jack, anything there. I don't know if anything has progressed there, Darlene.
Mentioned, wasn't it, at the township meeting?
there hasn't been anything said about the Cool Valley project. As a matter of fact, rumor now has it that Sabatino may be putting this property up for sale. Also, Canonsburg Hospital was supposed to go up at the far top of Lewicki Road on the old Weaver farm. That I was informed by a board member on the hospital board that they nixed that whole plan.
Like I said, I try to follow up with it, you know, and if I hear anything, I'll pass it on to you guys. But like I said, we had that for a while there, that it was back on again. We had an engineer working on it, then all of a sudden he left, another engineer got it, then that engineer got pulled off of it, and then now I don't even know who has it, so I haven't heard any more or less. So,
Because they don't pay their.
nothing going on there, so, but like I said, I just wanted to make everybody aware.
Okay, thank you. So the, going from number 2, or number 1 or 2, replacement of the truck. It was already budgeted for that second truck, so we don't have any challenges there as far as the challenge is finding one, right? And then for all of the other improvements you're talking about, you don't necessarily have prices on everything, so we don't know whether that will fall within the maintenance budget piece or whether we'll need to have a capital expenditure there.
Right. I'm figuring the hot water tank and the AC unit, that's going to be a minimum. You know, the capacitors, that, you know, it's a commercial unit, so they may be a little bit more, but it's not going to be anything that breaks the bank there. The roof is where I'm more concerned, you know, depending on what we find up there, because if it's a rubber roof, the joints, got to make sure the coping on the caps up there, it's not, the wind isn't blowing up underneath there or something let loose. It could even be leaking around, you know, the air conditioning unit, the vents, you know, the plumbing vents. Like I said, again, I'm not an expert on flat roofs, so I'm going to defer to somebody that is, you know, I mean, if there's something obvious up there, we can, you know, find it. But like I said, if it is something that turns out to be, we have to budget for, we can always do it for next year. But like I said, these are just some of the things that, you know, I'm encountering as I go through at the
We
different plants.
appreciate you going to every one of the sites and bringing this all to our attention. All right, thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions for Mike? Okay. We have any correspondence tonight?
I have one last
Has
thing.
another item.
One more.
Oh, sorry, you have one more item.
We have the motion to approve the signing of the easement encroachment agreement for a deck at 495 Dogwood Lane.
I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
I just have a question. What's the encroachment? I didn't remember seeing that.
The encroachment is about 7 foot, but it's an elevated deck. So it's 9 foot off the ground. It's not going to make a difference one way or the other. So,
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
all right.
Roll call.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
That's it.
Nothing on the rate and fee review?
I mentioned that
That in the-
under the budget. That was part of the budget.
Okay. Any correspondence? No correspondence? All right. Do I hear a motion to approve payment of expenses and transfer of funds, et cetera, for payment of expenses and invoices?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Any comments from the floor? Larry? No. Okay. Okay, do I hear a motion for executive session for personnel matters, litigation, and property?
So moved.
I'll second. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Okay, at 7:20, we're going into executive session.
I'll put my jacket back on, too.
Okay, coming out of executive session at 7:50. Let's see, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye, aye,
Aye.
aye, aye, aye. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, same here.
So fun.